Hello and welcome to the Blackstone Solicitors channel. Today we're diving into a topic that often comes up in commercial property transactions but isn't always well understood: Authorised Guarantee Agreements, often called AGAs. If you're a landlord or a tenant involved in assigning a commercial lease, knowing how AGAs work can save you from nasty surprises and potential financial headaches later on. So let's unpack what they are, why they exist, and what you need to look out for. Let's start with the basics. When a tenant takes on a commercial lease, they're agreeing to pay rent and meet various obligations for a set period of time. But what happens if that tenant wants to move out before the lease ends? In many cases, they'll look to assign the lease, essentially transferring it to a new tenant who takes over their responsibilities. Sounds simple enough, but from the landlord's point of view, there's a risk. The new tenant might not be as reliable as the original one. They could default on rent or breach the lease in some way. That's where an authorized guarantee agreement comes in. An AGA is a legal agreement where the outgoing tenant, the assigner, agrees to guarantee that the new tenant, the assignee, will comply with the terms of the lease. It's the landlord's safety net. If the new tenant fails to pay rent or breaches the lease, the landlord can turn to the previous tenant to make good on those obligations. So in essence, when you assign your lease, you might still be on the hook for what happens after you've gone, at least for a while. Imagine you run a small restaurant and decide to sell the business halfway through your lease. You find someone keen to take over, and the landlord agrees to the assignment, but only on the condition that you sign an authorized guarantee agreement. The new tenant takes over, but 6 months later they stop paying rent. The landlord can then come back to you under the AGA and demand payment until the issue is resolved.
It might not seem fair, but from a legal perspective, it's designed to protect landlords from being left out of pocket.
Now, the good news is that your liability under an AGA doesn't last forever. Once the new tenant assigns the lease again, with the landlord's consent, your obligations under the AGA usually come to an end. You're not guaranteeing the lease indefinitely, only for as long as the person you assigned it to remains the tenant. However, it's still a serious commitment. That's why it's so important to understand what you're agreeing to before you sign. At Blackstone Solicitors, we always advise tenants to get expert legal advice before entering into an AGA. The wording of these agreements can vary, and small differences can have big consequences. You'll want to know exactly what triggers your liability, how long it lasts, and whether there are any limits to what you could be required to pay. For landlords, AGAs are a useful tool for managing risk, but they also have to comply with strict legal rules set out in the Landlord and Tenant Covenants Act 1995. Not every situation qualifies for an AGA, and getting it wrong can make the guarantee unenforceable. So, to sum up, an authorized guarantee agreement is a promise by an outgoing tenant to guarantee the performance of the incoming tenant under a commercial lease. It gives landlords reassurance when a lease is assigned, but it also places a continuing obligation on the original tenant. Whether you're assigning a lease or accepting one, understanding your position before signing is crucial. Once that agreement is in place, it's legally binding, and the consequences can be significant if things go wrong. At Blackstone Solicitors, we help both landlords and tenants navigate assignments and AGAs with confidence. We'll make sure the terms are fair, compliant with the law, and reflect your best interests. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more legal insights. And if you're dealing with a lease assignment or an AGA and want expert advice, get in touch. We'd be delighted to help. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.